You couldn't hear any of that. Sorry, y'all. Damn it. Anyway, I was just saying basically that, like, I don't know if you heard during Jaggin, but Jackie can't join us on the date that I had calculated because it is Henry's birthday. So it's all his fault. We blame Henry, and I will have to come up with a new date, which means that I'll be adjusting which chapters we're reading, when, and all of that. Not that I've been on track at all this whole time. Anyway. But it requires me to do bad math, which is always fun. How rude of him to be born on that day. It's all his fault. I got hot on me. Note to self, fire hot. There we go. Oh, thanks, Rain So Sweet. That's very nice of you. And thank you for the follow. So, we're going to get started with chapter 19 here in just a moment. I completely forget what was going on when we last left. I know we had the bone carver, which was very fun to do. Yes, he was a crazy goblin man, and I loved doing that. It was so fun. But who knows where we're going to go next? Hey, Trisha knows. That's who knows. And we've got Mimi here, helping out as always. Being a little goblin herself. Goblin gang, rise up, yeah! My friend has this little scrappy chihuahua that we always call the Goblin King, because he's got like a snaggly tooth and patchy fur, and he's like so ugly, it's cute. We love Winston. He's a little bad boy. He does little bad boy things. We love him. Oh, all good, Katrisha. I definitely support getting out into the real world and doing real human things. It's not something I do enough of, for sure. Unless you count going into work, which I don't. So ugly, it's cute. Just how I often describe myself. You know, we all have those days. I certainly think sometimes I might be not looking my best. All right. So yeah, I think just flip on something else, because I don't hate this music, but I just sort of like to do a vibe switch, I think. Or at least just change the playlist. Room to that. This one's described as having genre-bending beats. I don't know what that means, but it's gonna bend some genres for us, apparently. plays. I'm using my old PC from 2015 right now to play the music, so. Tis decrepit. Okay, so it at least stopped the other music. It just didn't start playing the new music. Which is like, bruh, why? There we go. Alright, so I'm just going to get right into it. We're on chapter 19. We're going to try to go to chapter 22 today. So we'll see. And if new folks hop in, then we'll try to catch them up as best we can. Amren's right, Reese drawled, leaning against the threshold of the townhouse sitting room. You are like dogs waiting for me to come home. Maybe I should buy treats. Cassian gave him a vulgar gesture from where he lounged on the couch before the hearth. Vulgar gestures, again. An arm slung over the back behind Moore. Though everything about his powerful, muscled body suggested someone at ease, there was a tightness in his jaw, a coiled-up energy that told me they'd been waiting here for a while. Asriel lingered by the window, comfortably ensconced in shadows, a light flurry of snow dusting the lawn and street behind him. And Amren? Nowhere to be seen. I couldn't tell if I was relieved or not. I'd have to hunt her down to give her back the necklace soon, if Reese's warnings and her own words were to be believed. Damp and cold from the mist and wind that chased us down from the prison, I strode for the armchair across from the couch, which had been shaped, like so much of the furniture here, to accommodate Illyrian wings. I stretched my stiff limbs toward the fire and stifled a groan at the delicious heat. How'd it go? Moore said, straightening beside Cassian. No gown today, just practical black pants and a thick blue sweater. The bone carver, Reese said, is a busybody gossip who likes to pry into other people's business far too much. What? Cassian demanded, bracing his arms on his knees, wings tucked in tight. But, Reese said, he can also be helpful when he chooses. And it seems we need to start doing what we do best. I flexed my numbed fingers, content to let them discuss needing a moment to reel myself back in, to shut out what I'd revealed to the bone carver. And what the bone carver suggested I might actually be asked to do with that book, the abilities I might have. So Reese told them of the cauldron and the reason behind the temple pillagings, to no shortage of swearing and questions, and revealed nothing of what I had admitted in exchange for the information. Asriel emerged from his wreathing shadows to ask the most questions. His face and voice remained unreadable. Cassian, surprisingly, kept quiet, as if the general understood that the Shadow Singer would know what information was necessary and was busy assessing it for his own forces. When Reese was done, his spymaster said, I'll contact my sources in the summer court about where the F of the Book of Breathings is hidden. I can fly into the human world myself to figure out where they're keeping their part of the book before we ask them for it. No need, Reese said. And I don't trust this information, even with your sources, with anyone outside of this room, save for Amren. 1 second, guys. Can I help you, miss? Miss stumping your tail all over everything? Oh. She just has to be involved. Every time. Okay, so coming back to me now. Coming back to me now. That they went to the bone carver. And Feyre had to give a whole bunch of her secrets up. None of which were things that we didn't already know. But yeah, she had to tell him a bunch of things so that he would tell them about the book and about all the pieces of the cauldron. And when you get both and you put everything all together, then you can do great big awesome magic or whatever. And that's basically where we're at. So now they're gonna figure out where all the pieces of the cauldron are and see if they're being gathered. They believe they are. As well as all the pieces of the book. What is this hair on my neck? Come on. There we go. And yeah, they're just discussing this now, and they don't want it to get out. Clearly. So. And we wonder where Amryn is. Why is she not there? They can be trusted, Azriel said with quiet steel, his scarred hands clenching at his leather-clad sides. We're not taking risks where this is concerned, Rhys merely said. He held Azriel's stare, and I could almost hear the silent words Rhys added. It's no judgment or reflect on you, Az, not at all. But Azriel yielded no tinge of emotion as he nodded, his hands unfurling. So what do you have planned? Moore cut in, perhaps for Az's sake. Rhys picked an invisible piece of dirt off his fighting leathers. When he lifted his head, those violet eyes were glacial. The King of Hybern sacked one of our temples to get a missing piece of the cauldron. As far as I'm concerned, it's an act of war, an indication that His Majesty has no interest in wooing me. He likely remembers our allegiance to the humans in the war anyway, Cassian said. He wouldn't jeopardize revealing his plans while trying to sway you, and I bet some of Amarantha's cronies reported to him about Under the Mountain, about how it all ended, I mean. Cassian's throat bobbed. When Rhys had tried to kill her, I lowered my hands from the fire. Rhys said, Indeed. But this means Hybern's forces have already successfully infiltrated our lands. Without detection, I plan to return the favor. Mother above, Cassian and Moore just grinned with feral delight. How? Moore asked. Rhys crossed his arms. It will require careful planning, but if the cauldron is in Hybern, then to Hybern we must go, either to take it back or use the book to nullify it. Some cowardly, pathetic part of me was already trembling. Hybern likely has many wards and shields around it as we have here, Azriel countered. We need to find a way to get through them undetected first. A slight nod. Oh, excuse me, miss. Mimi did not like something about that. I'm having trouble figuring out who's talking here. I'm just gonna assume it's Azriel, because they didn't specifically say, otherwise it's annoying. Okay, a slight nod. Which is why we start now. Where we hunt for the book. So when we get both the elves, we can move swiftly before word can spread that we even possess it. Cassian nodded, but asked, How are you going to retrieve the book then? I braced myself as Rhys said,
Since these objects are spelled to the individual High Lords and can only be found by them through their power, then in addition to her
What is this?
Then in addition to her uses regarding the handling of the Book of Breathings itself, it seems we possibly have our own detector.
Now they all looked at me. Oh, okay. I cringed. Perhaps was what the bone carver said in regard to me being able to track things. You don't know. My words faded as Reese smirked.
You have a kernel of all our power, like having 7 thumbprints. If we've hidden something, if we've made or protected it with our power, no matter where it has been concealed, you will be able to track it through that very magic.
You can't know that for sure, I tried again.
No, but there is a way to test it.
Reese was still smiling.
Here we go,
Cassian grumbled. Moore gave Azrael a warning glare to tell him not to volunteer this time. The spymaster just gave her an incredulous look in return. I might have lounged in my chair to watch their battle of wills had Reese not said,
With your abilities, Farah, you might be able to find the half of the book at the summer court and break the words around it. But I'm not going to take the carver's word for it. I'll bring you there without testing you first, to make sure that when it counts, when we need to get that book, we do not fail. So we're going on another little trip to see if you can find a valuable object of mine that I've been missing for a considerably long time.
Oh, is this a good test, Carla? Shit, Moore said, plunging her hands into the thick folds of her sweater. Everybody's sticking their hands in pockets and sweaters and stuff. Come on, guys. Hands out. Where? I managed to say. It was Azrael who answered.
To the Weaver.
Reese held up a hand as Cassian opened his mouth.
The test, he said, will be to see if Farah can identify the object of mine in the Weaver's Trove. When we get to the summer court, Tarquin might have spelled his half of the book to look different, feel different.
By the cauldron, Reese, Moore snapped, setting both feet on the carpet. Are you out of your... Who is the Weaver? I pushed.
An ancient, wicked creature,
Azrael said, and I surveyed the faint scars on his wings, his neck, and wondered how many such things he'd encountered in his immortal life. If they were any worse than the people who shared blood ties with him,
who should remain unbothered, he added in Reese's direction. Find another way to test her abilities.
Reese merely shrugged and looked to me. To let me choose. Always. It was always my choice with him these days. Yet he hadn't let me go back to the spring court during those 2 visits. Because he knew how badly I needed to get away from it? I gnawed on my lower lip, weighing the risks, waiting to feel any kernel of fear, of emotion. But this afternoon had drained any reserve of such things. The bone carver, the weaver, can't you ever just call someone by a given name? Fair point. Cassian chuckled, and Moore settled back in the sofa cushions. Only Reese, it seemed, understood that it hadn't entirely been a joke. His face was tight, like he knew precisely how tired I was. How I know I should be quaking at the thought of this weaver. But after the bone carver, what I'd revealed to it, I could feel nothing at all. Reese said to me,
"What about adding one more name to that list?"
I didn't particularly like the sound of that. Moore said as much.
"Emissary,"
Rasan said, ignoring his cousin.
"Emissary to the Night Court, for the human realm."
Azrael said,
"There hasn't been one for 500 years, Reese." "There also hasn't been a human turned immortal since then either."
Reese met my gaze.
"The human world must be as prepared as we are. especially if the King of Hybern plans to shatter the wall and unleash his forces upon them. We need the other half of the book from those mortal queens, and if we can't use magic to influence them, then they're going to have to bring it to us.
More silence. On the street beyond the bay of windows, wisps of snow brushed past, dusting the cobblestones. Rhys jerked his chin at me.
You are an immortal fairy, with a human heart. Even as such, you might very well set foot on the continent and be hunted for it. So we set up a base in neutral territory, in a place where humans trust us, trust you, Feyre, and where other humans might risk going to meet with you, to hear the voice of Prythian after 5 centuries.
My family's estate, I said.
Mother's tits, Rhys,
Cassian cut in, wings flaring wide enough to nearly knock over the ceramic vase on the side table next to him.
You think we can just take over her family's house, demand that of them?
Nesta hadn't wanted any dealings with the Fae, and Elaine was so gentle, so sweet. How could I bring them into this? The land, Moore said, reaching over to return the vase to its place, will run red with blood, Cassian, regardless of what we do with her family. It is now a matter of where that blood will flow, and how much will spill. How much human blood we can save. And maybe it made me a cowardly fool, but I said, the spring court borders the wall. So she's worried about running into the spring court people, I guess.
The wall stretches across the sea. We'll fly it offshore.
Rhys said without so much as a blink.
I wouldn't risk discovery from any court, though word might spread quickly enough once we're there. I know it won't be easy, Feyre, but if there's any way you could convince those queens...
I'll do it, I said. Claire Bador's broken and nailed body flashed in my vision. Amarantha had been one of his commanders. Just one of many. The King of Hybern had to be horrible beyond reckoning to be her master. If these people got their hands on my sisters, they might not be happy about it, but I'll make Elaine and Nesta do it. I shouldn't have the nerve to ask Rhys if he could simply force my family to agree to help us if they refused. I wondered if his powers would work on Nesta when even Tamlin's glamour had failed against her steel mind. The streets will run wet with cum!
Then it's settled,
Rhys said. None of them looked particularly happy.
Once Feyre Darling returns from the Weaver, we'll bring Hybern to its knees.
He just called her Feyre Darling. Don't like it. Not because it's a pet name, I just don't like it like as a pet name, I don't know. That's just me, though. Rhys and the others were gone that night. Where, no one told me. But after the events of the day, I barely finished devouring the food Nuala and Ceridwen brought to my room before I tumbled into sleep. I dreamed of a long, white bone carved with horrifying accuracy. My face twisted in agony and despair, the ash knife in my hand, a pool of blood leaking away from 2 corpses. But I awoke to the watery light of winter dawn, my stomach full from the night before. A mere minute after I'd risen to consciousness, Rhys knocked on my door. I barely granted him permission to enter before he stalked inside like a midnight wind, and chucked a belt hung with knives onto the foot of the bed.
Hurry,
he said, flinging open the doors of the armoire and yanking out my fighting leathers. He tossed them onto the bed, too.
I want to be gone before the sun is fully up.
Why? I said, pushing back the covers. No wings today. Oh, you think he called her Feyre Darling as a taunt when they were under the mountain? Maybe he did. I don't remember. I know he said that when he showed up at the wedding. Exactly. Like, yeah, that's probably part of why I don't like it, because it's like now it's weird that he's like calling her such a nice thing. Because like I know they're getting closer, but I didn't know they were like that close yet. You know?
Because time was of the essence.
He dug out my socks and boots.
Once the King of Hybern realizes that someone is searching for the Book of Breathings to nullify the powers of the Cauldron, that his agents will begin hunting for it too.
You suspected this for a while, though. I hadn't had the chance to discuss it with him last night. The Cauldron, the King, the book. You wanted it confirmed, but you were waiting for me.
Had you agreed to work with me 2 months ago, I would have taken you right to the Bone Carver to see if he confirmed my suspicions about your talents. But things didn't go as planned.
No, they most certainly hadn't. The reading, I said, sliding my feet into fleece-lined, thick-soled slippers. That's why you insisted on the lessons? So if your suspicions were true, and I could harness the book, I could actually read it. Or any translation of whatever's inside. A book that old might very well be written in an entirely different language. A different alphabet.
Again,
he said, now striding for the dresser.
Had you started to work with me, I would have told you why. I couldn't risk discovery otherwise.
He paused with a hand on the knob. Hand on the knob.
You should have learned to read no matter what. But yes, when I told you it served my own purposes, it was because of this. Do you blame me for it?
No, I said, and meant it. But I'd prefer to be notified of any future schemes.
Duly noted.
Reese yanked open the drawers and pulled out my undergarments. He dangled the bits of midnight lace and chuckled.
I'm surprised you didn't demand Nuala and Ceridwen buy you something else.
I stalked to him, snatching the lace away. You're drooling on the carpet. I slammed the bathing room door before he could respond. Maybe she just likes lacy underwear, dude. I don't know. He was waiting as I emerged, already warm within the fur-lined leather. He held up the belt of knives, and I studied the loops and straps. No swords, no bow or arrows. Oh, that's what he said. That's what he said. Get out of my underwear drawer, Reese. Don't laugh at my panties.
No swords, no bow or arrows, he said.
He'd worn his own Illyrian fighting leathers, that simple, brutal sword strapped down his spine. But knives are fine? Reese knelt and spread wide the web of leather and steel, beckoning for me to stick a leg through one loop. I did as instructed, ignoring the brush of his steady hands on my thigh as I stepped through the other loop, and he began tightening and buckling things.
She will not notice a knife, as she has knives in her cottage for eating and her work. But things that are out of place, objects that have not been there, a sword, a bow and arrow, she might sense those things.
What about me? He tightened a strap. Strong, capable hands, so at odds with the finery he usually wore to dazzle the rest of the world. Into thinking he was something else entirely. Yep. It's just pulling on leather straps, you know. Got like some bondage energy happening here. One sec. Apologies. Okay, where were we?
Do not make a sound. Do not touch anything but the object she took from me.
Bree slipped up, hands braced on my thighs. Ooh.
Oh.
Oh, gotcha. Bow, he'd once ordered Tamlin. And now here he was, on his knees before me. His eyes glinted as if he remembered it too. Had that been a part of his game? That facade? Or had it been vengeance for the horrible blood feud between them?
If we're correct about your powers, he said, if the bone carver wasn't lying to us, then you and the object will have the same imprint, thanks to the preserving spells I placed on it long ago. You are one and the same. She will not notice your presence so long as you touch only it. You will be invisible to her.
She's blind? A nod.
But her other senses are lethal, so be quick and quiet. Find the object and run out, Feyre.
His hands lingered on my legs, wrapping around the back of them. Bro, stand up. This is getting weird. Just have a conversation while he's squatting on the ground. And if she notices me? His hands tightened slightly.
Then we'll learn precisely how skilled you are.
Cruel, conniving bastard. I glared at him. Reese shrugged.
Would you rather I locked you in the House of Wind and stuffed you with food and made you wear fine clothes and plan my parties?
Go to hell. Why not get this object yourself if it's so important?
Because the Weaver knows me. And if I'm caught, there would be a steep price. High Lords are not to interfere with her, no matter the direness of the situation. There are many treasures in her hoard, some she has kept for millennia. Most will never be retrieved, because the High Lords do not dare be caught, thanks to the laws that protect her, thanks to her wrath. Any thieves on their behalf, either they do not return, or they're never sent, for fear of it leading back to their High Lord. But you, she does not know you. You belong to every court.
So I'm your huntress and thief. His hands slid down to cup the backs of my knees as he said with a roguish grin,
You are my salvation, Feyre.
Stop touching her legs. Stop it. It's nutty. Stop. Strange. Don't know how I feel about it. Cut it out. This Pepsi I'm drinking is supposed to have real sugar in it, and it tastes fake. But is that because I'm used to regular Pepsi or cola that has fake sugar in it? I don't know. Confused. Soda's confusing me. That was the end of the chapter, by the way. Oh, I never changed the tracker. Damn it. Great, okay, so we're gonna move on to chapter 20. We're gonna find out who this Weaver is, hopefully. Figure out what's going on with that situation. Sun was on the ground way too long during that. Like, that's my main concern. Like, the touching's kind of weird, but whatever. But he was just, like, down there. Just sitting. That would look so weird. Be like, could you stand up? Talk to me? Like, this is just uncomfortable. Rasan winnowed us into a wood that was older, more aware than any place I'd been. Oh, Carla loves the Weaver. Okay, I'm gonna have to come up with something good for this. The gnarled beech trees were tightly woven together, splattered and draped so thoroughly with moss and lichen? I want to say lichen, but I know that's not it because that's werewolves. That it was nearly impossible to see the bark beneath. "Where are we?" I breathed, hardly daring to whisper. Reese kept his hands within casual reach of his weapons. "In the heart of Prithian, there is a large, empty territory that divides the north and south. At the center of it is our sacred mountain." Down there. My heart stumbled, and I focused on my steps through the ferns and moss and roots. "This forest," Reese went on, is on the eastern edge of that neutral territory. Here, there is no High Lord. Here, the law is made by who is strongest, meanest, most cunning, and the weaver of the wood is at the top of their food chain. The trees groaned, though there was no breeze to shift them. No, the air here was tight and stale. Amarantha didn't wipe them out? "Amarantha was no fool," Reese said, his face dark. "She did not touch these creatures or disturb the wood. For years, I tried to find ways to manipulate her to make that foolish mistake, but she never bought it. And now we're disturbing her. For a mere test." He chuckled, the sound bouncing off the gray stones strewn across the forest floor like scattered marbles. "Cassian tried to convince me last night not to take you. I thought he might even punch me." "Why?" I barely knew him. "Who knows? With Cassian, he's probably more interested in fucking you than protecting you." "You're a pig." "You could, you know," Reese said, holding up the branch of a scrawny beech for me to slip under. Why are we talking about this, man? Come on. "If you need to move on in a physical sense, I'm sure Cassian would be more than happy to oblige." Rude. I don't think she was, throwing off those vibes, man. Alright, whatever. It felt like a test in itself, and it pissed me off enough that I crooned, "Then tell him to come to my room tonight." I don't want that. No, thank you. Just inviting people in. Nah. "If you survive this test." I paused atop a little lichen-crusted rock. "You seem pleased by the idea that I won't." "Quite the opposite, Farah." He prowled to where I stood on the stone. I was almost eye level with him. The forest went even quieter. The trees seemed to lean closer, as if to catch my every word. "I'll let Cassian know you're open to his advances." Hey, Jade-Egg, yeah. Good, I said. A bit of hollowed-out air pushed against me, like a flicker of night. That power along my bones and blood stirred in answer. I made to jump off the stone, but he gripped my chin, the movement too fast to detect. His words were a lethal caress as he said, "Oh boy, guys. Getting... Do you enjoy the sight of me kneeling before you?" Why is he getting saucy? I knew he could hear my heart as it ratcheted into a thunderous beat. I gave him a hateful little smirk, anyway, yanking my chin out of his touch and leaping off the stone. I might have aimed for his feet, and he might have shifted out of the way just enough to avoid it. Isn't that all you males are good for anyway? But the words were tight, near breathless. His answering smile evoked silken sheets and jasmine-scented breezes at midnight. A dangerous line, One, Reese was forcing me to walk to keep me from thinking about what I was about to face. About what a wreck I was inside. Anger, this flirtation, annoyance. He knew those were my crutches. What I was about to encounter then must be truly harrowing if he wanted me going in there mad, thinking about sex, about anything but the Weaver of the Wood. Nice try, I said hoarsely. Rasan just shrugged and swaggered off into the trees ahead. Bastard. Yes, it had been to distract me, but I stormed after him as silently as I could, intent on tackling him and slamming my fist into his spine, but he held up a hand as he stopped before a clearing. She wanted to beat the shit out of him. Oh, Carla growled, okay. Anyone ever get you so horny you get mad? You want to punch him? Because that's where she's at right now. Like, damn it, stupid. Arrgh. I understand that feeling. I also don't want to like him. A small, whitewashed cottage with a thatched roof and half-crumbling chimney sat in the center. Ordinary, almost mortal. There was even a well, its bucket perched on the stone lip, and a woodpile beneath one of the round windows of the cottage. No sound or light within, not even smoke puffed from the chimney. It's just playing so much with her emotions, just manipulative is the word I would use. Few birds in the forest fell quiet. Not entirely, but to keep their chatter to a minimum. And there, faint, coming from inside the cottage, was a pretty, steady humming. It might have been the sort of place I would have stopped if I were thirsty, or hungry, or in need of shelter for the night. Maybe that was the trap. The trees around the clearing, so close that their branches nearly clawed the thatched roof, might very well have been the bars of a cage. Reese inclined his head toward the cottage, bowing with dramatic grace. In, out, don't make a sound. Find whatever object it was and snatch it from beneath a blind person's nose. And then run like hell. Mossy earth paved the way to the front door, already cracked slightly. A bit of cheese, and I was the foolish mouse about to fall for it. Eyes twinkling, Reese mouthed, "Good luck." I gave him a vulgar gesture, again with the vulgar gestures. It's like she can't find another way to say flipped on the bird. And slowly, silently, made my way toward the front door. The words seemed to monitor each of my steps. The woods seemed to monitor each of my steps. When I glanced behind, Reese was gone. He hadn't said if he'd interfere if I were in mortal peril. I probably should have asked. I avoided any leaves and stones, falling into a pattern of movement that some part of my body, some part that was not born of the High Lords, remembered. Like waking up. That's what it felt like. I passed the well. Not a speck of dirt, not a stone out of place. A perfect, pretty trap. That mortal part of me warned. A trap designed from a time when humans were prey, now laid for a smarter, immortal sort of game. I was not prey any longer. I was not prey any longer, I decided, as I eased up to that door. And I was not a mouse. I was a wolf. I listened on the threshold, the rock worn as if many, many boots had passed through, and perhaps never passed back over again. The words of her song became clear now, her voice sweet and beautiful, like sunlight on a stream. There were two sisters, they went playing. to see their father's ships come sailing. And when they came unto the sea brim, the elder did push the younger in. Made up a song. How did it go? I don't know. There we go. A honeyed voice for an ancient, horrible song. I'd heard it before, slightly different, but sung by humans who had no idea that it had come from fairy throats. I listened for another moment, trying to hear anyone else. But there was only a clatter and thrum of some sort of device, and the weaver's song. Sometimes she sank and sometimes she swam, till her corpse came to the miller's dam. If it's a real song, sorry, don't know it. My breath was tight in my chest, but I kept it even, directing it through my mouth in silent breaths. I eased upon the front door just an inch. No squeak, no whine of rusty hinges. Another piece of the pretty trap, practically inviting thieves in. I peered inside when the door had opened wide enough. A large main room, with a small, shut door in the back. Floor-to-ceiling shelves lined the walls, crammed with bric-a-brac. Books, shelves, dolls, herbs, pottery, shoes, crystals, more books, jewels. Oh, she's just in my office. From the ceiling and wood rafters hung all manner of chains, dead birds, dresses, ribbons, gnarled bits of wood, strands of pearls. A junk shop of some immortal hoarder. And that hoarder? In the gloom of the cottage, there sat a large spinning wheel, cracked and dulled with age. And before that ancient spinning wheel, her back to me, sat the weaver. Her thick hair was of richest onyx, tumbling down to her slender waist as she worked the wheel, snow-white hands feeding and pulling the thread around a thorn-sharp spindle. She looked young, her gray gown simple but elegant, sparkling faintly in the dim forest light through the windows as she sang in a voice of glittering gold. But what did he do with her breastbone? He made him a viol to play. What did he do with her fingers so small? He made pegs to his viol withal. The fiber she fed into the wheel was white, soft, like wool, but I knew, in the lingering human part of me, it was not wool. I knew that I did not want to learn what creature it had come from, who she was spinning into thread. Because of the shelf directly beyond her were cones upon cones of threads, of every color and texture, and on the shelf adjacent to her were swaths and yards of that woven thread. Woven, I realized, on the massive loom nearly hidden in the darkness near the hearth. The weaver's loom. I had come on spinning day. Would she have been singing if I had come on weaving day instead? From the strange, fear-drenched scent that came from these bolts of fabric, I already knew the answer. A wolf. I was a wolf. I stepped into the cottage, careful of the scattered debris on the earthen floor. She kept working, the wheel chattering so merrily, so at odds with her horrible song. And what did he do with her nose ridge? Unto his veil he made a bridge. What did he do with her veins so blue? He made strings to his viol thereto. I scanned the room, trying not to listen to the lyrics. Nothing. I felt nothing that might pull me toward one object in particular. Perhaps it would be a blessing if I were indeed not the one to track the book. If today was not the start of what was sure to be a slew of miseries. The weaver perched there, working. I scanned the shelves, the ceiling. Borrowed time. I was on borrowed time, and I was almost out of it. Had Reese sent me on a fool's errand? Maybe there was nothing here. Maybe this object had been taken. It would be just like him to do that. to tease me in the woods, to see what sort of things might make my body react. And maybe I resented Tamlin enough in that moment to enjoy that deadly bit of flirtation. Maybe I was as much a monster as the female spinning before me. But if I was a monster, then I suppose Rhys was as well. Rhys and I were one and the same, beyond the power that he'd given me. It'd be fitting if Tamlin hated me too, once he realized I'd truly left. I felt it then, like a tap on my shoulder. I pivoted, keeping one eye on the Weaver and the other on the room as I wove through the maze of tables and junk. Like a beacon, a bit of light laced with his half-smile. It tugged me.
Hello,
It seemed to say.
have you come to claim me at last?
Yes, I wanted to say, even as part of me wished it were otherwise. The Weaver sang behind me. What did he do with her eyes so bright? On his veal he set at first light. What did he do with her tongue so rough? 'Twas the new till and it spoke enough. I found that pulse, toward the shelf lining the wall beside the hearth. Nothing. And nothing on the second. But the third, right above my eye line, there. I could almost smell his salt and citrus scent. The bone carver had been correct. I rose on my toes to examine the shelf. An old letter knife, books in leather that I did not want to touch or smell, a handful of acorns, a tarnished crown of ruby and jasper, and a ring. A ring of twisted strands of gold and silver, flecked with pearl and set with a stone of deepest solid blue. Sapphire, but different. I'd never seen a sapphire like that, even at my father's offices. This one? I could have sworn that in the pale light, the lines of a six-pointed star radiated across the round, opaque surface. Rhys. This had Rhys written all over it. He'd sent me here for a ring? The Weaver sang. Then bespake the treble string, oh, yonder is my father the king. I watched her for another heartbeat, gauging the distance between the shelf and the open door. Grabbed the ring, and I could be gone in a heartbeat. Quick, quiet, calm. Then bespake the second string, oh, yonder sits my mother the queen. I dropped a hand toward one of the knives strapped to my thighs. When I got back to Rhys, maybe I'd stab him in the gut. That fast. The memory of phantom blood covered my hands. I knew how it'd feel to slide my dagger through his skin and bones and flesh. Knew how the blood would dribble out. How he'd groan in pain. I shut out the thought, even as I could feel the blood of those fairies soaking that human part of me that hadn't died and belonged to no one but my miserable self. Then bespake the strings all three, yonder is my sister that drowned me. My hand was quiet as a final dying breath, and I plucked the ring from the shelf. The Weaver stopped singing.
And that was chapter 20.
Ooh. Did you like my made-up song? I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, okay. I hate that. When you have to do that, and when you're reading a book out loud, you have to do that. Or like when you're in a play. Like it used to happen all the time when we did Shakespeare, because Shakespeare's lots of songs in it. They'd be like, okay, we're going to do a table read of this show. If a song comes up, just sing it. And it's like, I don't know. Especially if you don't know like what the song's about or where it's going or like what the vibe of the scene is, and you're just like, okay. Because if you start singing a really happy song and it ends up being like, oh, my mom's dead, it's like, oh god. Okay, whew. We are getting into chapter 21. Let's update the tracker.
Chapter 21, here we go.
I froze, the ring now in the pocket of my jacket. She'd finished the last song. Maybe she'd start another. Maybe. The spinning wheel slowed. I backed a step toward the door, then another. Slower and slower, each rotation of the ancient wheel longer than the last. Only 10 steps to the door. 5. The wheel went round, one last time, so slow I could see each of the spokes. 2. I turned for the door as she lashed out with a white hand, gripping the wheel and stopping it wholly. The door before me snicked shut. I lunged for the handle, but there was none. Window. Get to the window. To the wall! Sorry.
Who is in my house?
She said softly. Fear. Undiluted, unbroken fear. Slammed into me, and I remembered. I remembered what it was to be human and helpless and weak. I remembered what it was to want to fight to live, to be willing to do anything to stay breathing. I reached the window beside the door. Sealed. No latch, no opening. Just glass that was not glass. Solid and impenetrable. The weaver turned her face toward me. Wolf or mouse, it made no difference, because I became no more than an animal, sizing up my chance of survival. Above her young, supple body, beneath her black, beautiful hair, her skin was gray, wrinkled, and sagging and dry. And where eyes should have gleamed instead lay rotting black pits. Her lips had withered to nothing but deep, dark lines around a hole full of jagged stumps of teeth, like she had gnawed on too many bones. And I knew she would be gnawing on my bones soon if I did not get out. Her nose, perhaps once pert and pretty, now half caved in, flared as she sniffed in my direction.
What are you?
She said in a voice that was so young and lovely. Out. I had to get out. There was another way. One suicidal, reckless way. I did not want to die. I did not want to be eaten. I did not want to go into that sweet darkness. The weaver rose from her little stool, and I knew my borrowed time had run out.
What is like all?
She mused, taking one graceful step toward me.
But unlike all.
I was a wolf, and I bit when cornered. I lunged for the sole candle burning on the table in the center of the room, and hurled it against the wall of woven thread, against all those miserable dark bolts of fabric, woven bodies, skins, lives. Let them be free. Fire erupted, and the weaver's shriek was so piercing, I thought my head might shatter. Thought my blood might boil in its veins. She dashed for the flames as if she'd put them out with those flawless white hands, her mouth of rotted teeth open and screaming like there was nothing but black hell inside her. I hurtled for the darkened hearth, for the fireplace and chimney above, a tight squeeze, but wide enough for me. I didn't hesitate as I grabbed onto the ledge and hauled myself up, arms buckling. Immortal strength. It caught me only so far, and I'd become so weak, so malnourished. I had let them make me weak, bent to it like some wild horse broken to the bit. The soot-stained bricks were loose, uneven, perfect for climbing. Faster. I had to go faster. But my shoulders scraped against the brick, and it reeked in here, like carrion and burned hair, and there was an oily sheen on the stone, like cooked fat. The weaver's screaming was cut short as I was halfway up her chimney, sunlight and trees almost visible, every breath a near sob. I reached for the next brick, fingernails breaking as I hauled myself up so violently that my arms barked in protest against the squeezing of the stone around me, and I was stuck. Stuck as the weaver hissed from within her house.
What little mouse is climbing about in my chimney?
I had just enough room to look down as the weaver's rotted face appeared below. She put that milk-white hand on the ledge, and I realized how little room there was between us. My heart emptied out. I pushed against the grip of the chimney, but couldn't budge. I was going to die here. I was going to be dragged down by those beautiful hands and ripped apart and eaten. Maybe while I was still alive, she'd set that hideous mouth on my flesh and gnaw and tear and bite. Black panic crushed in, and I was again trapped under a nearby mountain, in a muddy trench, the Midgard worm barreling for me. I barely escaped, barely. I couldn't breathe, couldn't breathe, couldn't breathe. The weaver's nails scratched against the brick as she took a step up. No, 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 no! I kicked and kicked against the bricks. Did you think you could steal and flee, thief? I would have preferred the Midgard worm, would have preferred those massive sharp teeth to her jagged stumps. Stop. The word came out of darkness of my mind, and the voice was my own. Stop, it said. I said. Breathe. Think. The weaver came closer, brick crumbling under her hands. She'd climb up like a spider, like I was a fly in her web. Stop. And that word quieted everything. I mouthed it. Stop, stop, stop. Think. I had survived the worm, survived Amarantha, and I had been granted gifts, considerable gifts, like strength. I was strong. I slammed a hand against the chimney wall, as low as I could get. The weaver hissed at the debris that rained down. I smashed my fist against it, rallying that strength. I was not a pet, not a doll, not an animal. I was a survivor, and I was strong. I would not be weak or helpless again. I would not, could not be broken, tamed. I pounded my fist into the bricks over and over, and the weaver paused. Paused long enough for the brick I'd loosened to slide free into my waiting palm, and for me to hurl it at her hideous, horrible face as hard as I could. Bone crunched and she roared, black blood spraying. But I rammed my shoulders into the sides of the chimney, skin tearing beneath my leather. I kept going, going, going until I was stone breaking stone, until nothing and no one held me back and I was scaling the chimney. I didn't dare stop, not as I reached the lip, and hauled myself out. Tumbling onto the thatched roof, which was not thatched with hay at all, but hair. And with all that fat lining the chimney, all that fat now gleaming on my skin, hair clung to me, in clumps and strands and tufts. Bile rose, but the front door banged open, a shriek following it. No, not that way. Not to the ground. Up, up, up. A tree branch hung low and close by, and I scrambled across that heinous roof, trying not to think about who and what I was stepping on, what clung to my skin, my clothes. A heartbeat later, I jumped onto the waiting branch, scrambled into the leaves and moss as the weaver screamed. Where are you? But I was running through the tree, running toward another one nearby. I leaped from branch to branch, bare hands tearing on the wood. Where was Rasand? Farther and farther I fled, her screams chasing me, though they grew ever distant. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? And then, lounging on a branch in a tree before me, one arm draped over the edge. Rasand drawled,
What the hell did you do?
I skidded to a stop, breathing raw. I thought my lungs might actually be bleeding. You! I hissed, but he raised a finger to his lips and winnowed to me, grabbing my waist with one hand and cupping the back of my neck with his other as he spirited us away. To Valaris, to just above the House of Wind. We free fell, and I didn't have breath to scream as his wings appeared, spreading wide, and he curved us into a steady glide, right through the open windows of what had to be a war room. Cassian was there, in the middle of arguing with Omrin about something. Both froze as we landed on the red floor. There was a mirror on the wall behind them, and I glimpsed myself long enough to know why they were gaping. My face was scratched and bloody, and I was covered in dirt and grease, boiled fat, and mortar dust. The hair stuck to me, and I smelled. "You smell like barbecue," Amren said, cringing a bit. Cassian loosened the hand he'd wrapped around the fighting knife at his thigh. I was still panting, still trying to gobble down breath. The hair clinging to me, scratched and tickled, and...
"You kill her?"
Cassian said.
"No,"
Reese answered for me, loosely folding his wings.
"But given how much the Weaver was screaming, I'm dying to know what Feyre Darling did."
Grease. I had the grease and hair of people on me. I vomited all over the floor. Cassian swore, but Amren waved a hand and it was instantly gone, along with the mess on me. Ooh, cleaning magic. Right, Jadig? They have barbecue? They have a lot of, weirdly modern stuff. Like modern Earth human stuff. I like that Amren can just magic away yucky. Like just, oh, that's gross. Spy. I want that power. That'd be great. Yeah, don't get us started on the plumbing. Oh my god. Every time a toilet's mentioned. She detected me somehow, I managed to say, slumping against the large black table and wiping my mouth against the shoulder of my leathers. They were just cleaned. And locked the doors and windows, so I had to climb out through the chimney. I got stuck, I added as Cassian's brows rose. And when she tried to climb up, I threw a brick at her face. Silence. Amren looked to respond. "And where were you?"
"Waiting. Far enough away that she couldn't detect me."
I snarled at him. I could have used some help. There's a lot of old school ways to barbecue in a lot of different cultures, actually. Yeah, I mean, you are right, Patricia. I think it's more the term barbecue, but maybe... Yeah, so that you get, the toilet not so much, yes. I guess maybe, yeah, the term barbecue, I think, is what's sticking for me. I just interpret it as being quite modern, but I may be wrong. I don't know. It probably isn't a newer word. I'm probably just being dumb.
"You survived,"
he said. "But did you die?"
"And found a way to help yourself."
From the hard glimmer in his eye, I knew he was aware of the panic that had almost gotten me killed. Either through mental shields I'd forgotten to raise, or whatever anomaly in our bond. He'd been aware of it, and let me endure it. Because it had almost gotten me killed, and I'd be no use to him if it happened when it mattered. With the book. Exactly like he'd said. That's what this was also about, I spat. Not just that stupid ring. I reached into my pocket, slamming the ring down on the table. Or my abilities, but if I can master my panic. Cassian swore again, his eyes on that ring. Amren shook her head, a sheet of dark hair swaying.
Brutal.
But effective. But did you die, though? Reese only said,
"Now you know. You can use your abilities to hunt our objects, and thus track the book at the summer court. And master yourself."
"You're a prick, Rysand," Cassian said quietly. Reese merely tucked his wings in with a graceful snap.
"You'd do the same."
Cassian shrugged, as if to say fine, he would. I looked at my hands, my nails bloody and cracked, and I said to Cassian, "I want you to teach me how to fight, to get strong, if the offer to train still stands." Cassian's brows rose, and he didn't bother looking to Reese for approval.
You'll be calling me a prick pretty damn fast if we train. And I don't know anything about training humans. How breakable your bodies are. Were, I mean.
He added with a wince.
We'll figure it out.
I don't want my only option to be running, I said. Running, Amrin cut in. Kept you alive today. I ignored her. I want to know how to fight my way out. I don't want to have to wait on anyone to rescue me. I faced Reese, crossing my arms. Well, have I proved myself? But he merely picked up the ring and gave me a nod of thanks.
It was my mother's ring.
And if that were all the explanation and answers, as if that were all the explanation and answers owed. How'd you lose it? I demanded.
I didn't. My mother gave it to me as a keepsake, then took it back when I reached maturity, and gave it to the Weaver for safekeeping.
Why?
So I wouldn't waste it.
Nonsense and idiocy, and I wanted a bath. I wanted quiet and a bath. The need for those things hit me strong enough that my knees buckled. I'd barely looked at Reese before he grabbed my hand, flared his wings, and had us soaring back through the windows. We free fell for 5 thunderous, wild heartbeats before he winnowed to my bedroom in the townhouse. A hot bath was already running. I staggered to it, exhaustion hitting me like a physical blow, when Reese said,
"What about training your other gifts?"
Through the rising steam from the tub, I said, "I think you and I would shred each other to bits."
"Oh, we most definitely will."
He leaned against the bathing room threshold.
"But it wouldn't be fun otherwise. Consider our training now officially part of your work requirements with me."
A jerk of the chin.
"Go ahead. Try to get past my shields."
I knew which ones he was talking about. I'm tired. The bath will go cold.
"I promise it'll be just as hot in a few moments. Or if you mastered your gifts, you might be able to take care of that yourself."
I frowned, but took a step toward him, then another, making him yield a step, 2, into the bedroom. The phantom grease and hair clung to me, reminded me what he'd done. I held his stare, those violet eyes twinkling. "You feel it, don't you?"
"You feel it, don't you?"
he said over the burbling and chittering garden birds.
"Your power, stalking under your skin, purring in your ear."
"So what if I do?" A shrug.
"I'm surprised Ianthe did carve you up on an altar to see what that power looks like inside you."
What precisely is your issue with her?
"I find the High Priestesses to be a perversion of what they once were, once promised to be. Ianthe among the worst of them."
Knot twisted in my stomach. Why do you say that?
"Get past my shields and I'll show you."
So that explained the turn in conversation. A taunt. Bait. Holding his stare, I let myself fall for it. I let myself imagine that line between us, a bit of braided light. And there was his mental shield at the other end of the bond, black and solid and impenetrable. No way in. However, I'd slipped through before. I had no idea. I've had enough tests for the day. Reese crossed the 2 feet between us.
"The High Priestesses have burrowed into a few of the courts, dawn, day, and winter mostly. They've entrenched themselves so thoroughly that their spies are everywhere. Their followers near fanatic with devotion. Yet, during those 50 years, they escaped. They remained hidden. I would not be surprised if Ianthe sought to establish a foothold in the Spring Court."
You mean to tell me they're all black-hearted villains?
"No. Some, yes. Some are compassionate and selfless and wise. But there are some who are merely self-righteous, though those are the ones that always seem the most dangerous to me."
And Ianthe? A knowing sparkle in his eyes. You really wouldn't tell me. You'd dangle it before me like a piece of meat. I lunged, blindly, wildly. But I sent my power lashing down that line between us, and yelped as it slammed against his inner shields, the reverberations echoing in me as surely as if I'd hit something with my body. Reese chuckled, and I saw fire.
Admirable. Sloppy, but an admirable effort.
Panting a bit, I seethed.
But he said, just for trying.
He took my hand in his. The bond went taut, that thing under my skin pulsing, and it was dark, and the colossal sense of him on the other side of his mental barricade of black adamant. That shield went on forever, the product of half a millennia of being hunted, attacked, hated. I brushed a mental hand against that wall. Like a mountain cat arching into a touch, it seemed to purr, and then relaxed its guard. His mind opened for me. An antechamber, at least. A single space he'd carved out to allow me to see. Bedroom carved from obsidian. A mammoth bed of ebony sheets, large enough to accommodate wings. And on it, sprawled in nothing but her skin, lay Ianthe. I reeled back, realizing it was a memory, and Ianthe was in his bed, in his court beneath that mountain. Her full breasts peaked against the chill. Oh my, oh my.
There's more,
Reese's voice said from far away as I struggled to pull out. But my mind slammed into the shield, the other side of it. He'd trapped me in here. Oh, that's not nice, dude. That seems not okay. Don't do that.
You kept me waiting,
Ianthe sulked. The sensation of hard carved wood digging into my back, Rasan's back, as he leaned against the bedroom door.
Get out.
Ianthe gave a little pout, bending her knee and shifting her legs wider. Oh, baring herself to him. Oh!
I see the way you look at me, High Lord.
She gotta know the truth. I know, but this feels like gross. I don't know.
You see what you want to see.
We said. The door opened beside him.
Get out.
A coy tilt of her lips.
I heard you like to play games.
The dirty, steamy truth. Her slender hand drifted low, trailing past her belly button. Don't touch yourself right now.
I think you'll find me a diverting playmate.
Don't do that, ma'am. Don't do that, ma'am. He doesn't want you there. He's telling you to leave. Get out. Leave. Icy wrath crept through me, him, as he debated the merits of splattering her on the walls. And how much of an inconvenience it had caused. She'd hounded him relentlessly, stalked the other males, too. Osriel had left last night because of it, and Moore was about one more comment away from snapping her neck.
I thought your allegiance lay with other courts.
His voice was so cold, the voice of the High Lord.
My allegiance lies with the future of Prithian, with the true power in this land.
Her fingers slid between her legs and halted. Her gasp cleaved the room as he sent a tendril of power blasting for her, pinning the arm to the bed, away from herself.
Do you know what a union between us could do for Prithian? For the world?
She said, eyes devouring him still. Ianthe's the worst! Oh yeah, I don't like this.
You mean yourself. Our offspring could rule Prithian.
Cruel amusement danced through him.
So you want my crown? And for me to play stud?
She tried to writhe her body, but his power held her.
I don't see anyone else worthy of the position.
She'd be a problem, now and later. He knew it. Kill her now, end the threat before it began, face the wrath of the other high priestesses, or see what happened.
Get out of my bed, get out of my room, and get out of my court.
He released his power's grip to allow her to do so. Ianthe's eyes darkened, and she slithered to her feet, not bothering with her clothes, draped over his favorite chair. Each step toward him had her generous breasts bobbing. Ah, her big tits! She stopped barely a foot away. You have no idea what I can make you feel, High Lord. She reached a hand for him, right between his legs. Don't just grab at his dick. Come on. His power lashed around her fingers before she could grab him. He crunched the power down, twisting. Ianthe screamed. She tried backing away, but his power froze her in place. So much power, so easily controlled, roiling around her, contemplating ending her existence like an asp surveying a mouse. Reese leaned close to breathe into her ear.
Don't ever touch me. Don't ever touch another male in my court.
His power snapped bones and tendons, and she screamed again. Oh.
Your hand will heal, he said, stepping back. The next time you touch me or anyone in my lands, you will find that the rest of you will not fare so well.
Tears of agony ran down her face, the effect wasted by the hatred lighting her eyes. You will regret this, she hissed. He laughed softly, a lover's laugh, and a flicker of power had her thrown onto her ass in the hallway. Her clothes followed a heartbeat later. Then the door slammed. Like a pair of scissors through a taut ribbon, the memory was severed. The shield behind me fell, and I stumbled back, blinking.
Rule 1,
Reese told me, his eyes glazed with the rage of that memory.
Don't go into someone's mind unless you hold the way open. A Damighty might leave their minds spread wide for you, and then shut you inside, turn you into their willing slave.
A chill went down my spine at the thought. But what he'd shown me?
Rule 2,
he said, his face hard as stone.
When
was that? I blurted. I knew him well enough not to doubt its truth. When did that happen between you? The ice remained in his eyes.
100 years ago, at the Court of Nightmares. I allowed her to visit after she'd begged for years, insisting she wanted to build ties between the Night Court and the priestesses. I'd heard rumors about her nature, but she was young and untried, and I hoped that perhaps a new high priestess might indeed be the change her order needed. It turned out that she was already well trained by some of her less benevolent sisters.
I swallowed hard, my heart thundering. She didn't act that way at Lucian. Lucian had hated her, had made vague, vicious allusions to not liking her, to being approached by her. I was going to throw up. Had she pursued him like that? Had he been forced to say yes because of her position? And if I went back to the Spring Court one day, how would I ever convince Tamlin to dismiss her? What if, now that I was gone, she was...
Rule 2,
Reese finally went on.
Be prepared to see things you might not like.
Only 50 years later, Amarantha had come and done exactly to Reese what he'd wanted to kill Ianthe for. He'd let it happen to him, to keep them safe, to keep Azriel and Cassian from the nightmares that would haunt him forever, from enduring any more pain than what they'd suffered as children. I lifted my head to ask him more, but Reese had vanished. Alone, I peeled off my clothes, struggling with the buckles and straps he'd put on me. When had it been? An hour or two ago? Oh yeah, poor Lucian. I love him. It's not fair. It felt as if a lifetime had passed, and I was now a certified book tracker, it seemed. Better than a party-planning wife for breeding little high lords. What Ianthe had wanted to make me, to serve whatever agenda she had. The bath was indeed hot, as he'd promised, and I mulled over what he'd shown me. Seeing that hand again and again reach between his legs, the ownership and arrogance in that gesture. I shut out the memory, the bathwater suddenly cold. That was chapter 21. Oh boy. Oh boy. So that's a lot. So yeah, we didn't trust Ianthe, and she is a badswoman. Yeah. No, we didn't trust her, and now we know why. We've got a really good reason why not. That's not good. Don't do that. Hey, Mimi. She agrees. You stinky dog. Yeah. No Chihuahua grumbles. Big yawns. Yes, big yawns. Okay, yeah, so chapter 22 is a good length, so we can probably do that one, and I think that's where we will stop, because that was my prediction. That's what my math told me to do.
Hi, doggy.
He said hi to you. Alright, here we go. Chapter 22. Word still hadn't come from the summer court the following morning, so Rasan made good on his decision to bring us to the mortal realm. What does one wear exactly in the human lands? Moore said from where she sprawled across the foot of my bed. Is that what it means to be a sex pest? Yeah, I think that's probably a good... Yeah, that's probably a good indication of being a sex pest. It's doing that, yeah. Oh, you don't remember what happened next, but you're excited. Yes, okay, good. I don't know what happens at all, so we're gonna find out. Moore said from where she sprawled across the foot of my bed. For someone who claimed to have been out drinking and dancing until the mother knew when, she appeared unfairly perky. She's a party girl. She's good at partying late and getting up early. Party girl. Cassian and Azriel grumbled, and wincing over breakfast, had looked like they'd been run over by wagons, repeatedly. Some small part of me wondered what it would be like to go out with them, to see what Valaris might offer at night. Party! Yeah, let's go party. No, I'm not a party person. I'm usually working at the party. I rifled through the clothes in my armoire. Layers, I said. They cover everything up. The décolletage might be a little daring depending on the event, but everything else gets hidden beneath skirts and petticoats and nonsense. Sounds like the women are used to not having to run or fight. I don't remember it being that way 500 years ago. I paused on an ensemble of turquoise with accents of gold. Rich, bright, regal. Even with the wall, the threat of fairies remained. Oh, sorry, this is not. Yes. Boop. Yeah, I guess Cassian didn't come by. I think that was Rasan just messing with her. And her messing around back, I don't think. I think it's like he was asking for a friend. You know? Teasy teasy. Even with the wall, the threat of fairies remained, so surely practical clothes would have been necessary to run, to fight any that crept through. I wonder what changed. I pulled out the top and pants for her approval. Moore merely nodded. No commentary, but Ianthe might have provided. No... I'm not even reading the words that are written on the page. I'm just making shit up now. Oh my god, okay, focus. Moore merely nodded. No commentary like Ianthe might have provided. No beatific intervention. I shoved away the thought and the memory of what she tried to do to Reese and went on. Nowadays, most women wed their children and then plan their children's marriages. Some of the poor might work in the fields, and a rare few are mercenaries or hired soldiers, but the wealthier they are, the more restricted their freedoms and rules become. You'd think that money would buy you the ability to do whatever you pleased. You're rooting for it? I don't know who I want to fuck who, but they're all hot. Everybody's hot. Some of the high fae, Moore said, pulling on an embroidered thread in my blanket, are the same. I slipped behind the dressing screen to untie the robe I'd donned moments before she'd entered to keep me company while I prepared for our journey today. In the Court of Nightmares, she went on, that voice falling soft and a bit cold once more, females are prized. Our virginity is guarded, then sold off to the highest bidder. Whatever male will be of the most advantage to our families. That don't sound nice. I kept dressing, if only to give myself something to do while the horror of what I began to suspect slithered through my bones and blood. I was born stronger than anyone in my family, even the males, and I couldn't hide it because they could smell it, the same way you can smell a High Lord's air before he comes to power. The power leaves a mark, an echo. When I was 12, before I bled, I prayed it meant no male would take me as a wife. I woke up my Amazon thingy. I don't have any questions. Goodbye. Damn voice activated shit. That I would escape what my elder cousins had endured. Loveless, sometimes brutal marriages. I tugged my blouse over my head and buttoned the velvet cuffs at my wrists before adjusting the sheer turquoise sleeves into place. But then I began bleeding a few days after I turned 17, and the moment my first blood came, my power awoke in full force, and even that God's damned mountain trembled around us. 17? Girl, you okay? But instead of being horrified, every single ruling family in the hewn cities saw me as a prize mare, saw that power and wanted it bred into their bloodline over and over again. What about your parents? I managed to say, slipping my feet into the midnight blue shoes. It'd be the end of winter in the mortal lands. Most shoes would be useless. Actually, my current ensemble would be useless, but only for the moments I'd be outside. Bundled up. My family was beside themselves with glee. They could have their pick of an allegiance with any of the other ruling families. My pleas for choice in the matter went unheard. She got out, I reminded myself. Moore got out and now lived with people who cared for her, who loved her. The rest of the story, Moore said as I emerged, is long and awful, and I'll tell you some other time. I came in here to say I'm not going with you to the mortal realm. Because of how they treat women? Her rich brown eyes were bright, but calm. When the queens come, I will be there. I wish to see if I recognize any of my long-dead friends in their faces, but I don't think I would be able to behave with any others. Did Reese tell you not to go? I said tightly. No, she said, snorting. He tried to convince me to come, actually. He said I was being ridiculous, but Cassian, he gets it. The two of us wore him down last night. My brows rose a bit. Why, they'd gone out and gotten drunk, no doubt, to ply their high lord with alcohol. Yeah, they do live hundreds of years, Kadrisha. I guess you're right. Yeah. Moore shrugged at the unasked question in my eyes. Cassian helped Reese get me out, before either had the real rank to do so. For Reese, getting caught would have been a mild punishment,
Perhaps a bit of social shunning. But Cassian, he risked everything to make sure I stayed out of that court. And he laughs about it, but he believes he's a low-born bastard, not worthy of his rank or life here. He has no idea that he's worth more than any other male I met in that court. And outside of it. Him and Azriel, that is. Yes, Azriel, who kept a step away, whose shadows trailed him and seemed to fade at her presence. I opened my mouth to ask about her history with him, but the clock chimed 10. Time to go. My hair had been arranged before breakfast in a braided coronet atop my head, a small diadem of gold, flecked with lapis and lazuli. Lazuli! I don't know if there's a better way to say that, but every time I see it, I just say lazuli. Set before it. Matching earrings dangled low enough to brush the sides of my neck, and I picked up the twisting gold bracelets that had been left out on the dresser, sliding one onto either wrist. Why's she get a crown, also? Why are they giving her a tiara to wear? Seems very... a lot. Moore made no comment, and I knew that if I had worn nothing but my undergarments, she would have told me to own every inch of it. Yeah. We need that positivity. Whatever you're wearing, you work it, girl. She made. She saved the realm. She important. Fair enough. I just mean, like, she generally isn't into that stuff. It seems like a lot for her. I don't know. But, yeah. I mean, she can. Anybody can. Wear whatever you want, girl. Don't care. Fine. Totally cool. But also, like, give the girl her crown. Just like the poster says, we have to remember to straighten her crown. I turned to her. I'd like my sisters to meet you. Maybe not today, but if you ever feel like it. She cocked her head. I rubbed the back of my bare neck. I want them to hear your story and know that there is a special strength. As I spoke, I realized I needed to hear it, know it too. A special strength in enduring such dark trials and hardships. Straighten your crown! And still remaining warm and kind. Still willing to trust and reach out. Moore's mouth tightened, and she blinked a few times. Also, you noticed in Bridgerton, small tiaras are just a fashion accessory in those times, apparently. Well, I mean, small tiaras are just a fashion accessory now as well. You can definitely purchase them. I'm not saying I have one. Just behind my computer here, but I do. 2, actually. So, yes. If you look just here, there's a little puppy head. She's decided to hide her face in my arm. So cute. She just wants to go to sleep. I went for the door, but paused with my hand on the knob. I'm sorry if I was not as welcoming to you as you were to me when I arrived at the night court. I'm trying to learn how to adjust. A pathetic, inarticulate way of explaining how ruined I'd become. But Moore hopped off the bed, opened the door for me, and said, "There are good days and hard days for me, even now. Don't let the hard days win." Today, it seemed, would indeed be yet another hard day. With Rhys, Cassian, and Azriel ready to go, Amren and Moore remaining in Valaris to run the city and plan our inevitable trip to Highburn, I was left with only one choice. Who to fly with. Rhys would winnow us off the coast, right to the invisible line where the wall bisected our world. There was a tear in its magic about half a mile offshore, which we'd fly through. But standing in that hallway,
all of them in their fighting leathers and me bundled in a heavy fur-lined cloak. I took one look at Reese and felt those hands on my thighs again. Oh. Felt how it had been to look inside his mind. Felt his cold rage. Felt him defend himself, his people, his friends, using the power and masks in his arsenal. He'd seen and endured such unspeakable things, and yet his hands on my thighs had been gentle, the touch like... I didn't let myself finish the thought as I said, "I'll fly with Azrael." Okay. Reese and Cassian looked as if I'd declared I wanted to parade through Valaris in nothing but my skin, but the Shadow Singer merely bowed his head and said, "Of course." And that, thankfully, was that. Reese winnowed in Cassian first, returning a heartbeat later from me and Azrael. The Spy Master had waited in silence. I tried not to look too uncomfortable as he scooped me into his arms, those shadows that whispered to him, stroking my neck. Ooh. Stroking my neck, my cheek. Ooh. Reese was frowning a bit, and I just gave him a sharp look and said, "Don't let the wind ruin my hair." He snorted, gripped Azrael's arm, and we all vanished into a dark wind. Stars and blackness. Azrael's scarred hands clenching tightly around me, my arms entwined around his neck, bracing, waiting, counting. Then blinding sunlight, roaring wind, a plunge down. Then we tilted, shooting straight. Azrael's body was warm and hard, though those brutalized hands were considerate as he gripped me. No shadows trailed us, as if he'd left them in Valaris. Below, ahead, behind, the vast blue sea stretched. Above, fortresses of clouds plodded along, and to my left, a dark smudge on the horizon. Land. Spring Court land. I wondered if Tamlin was on the western sea border. He'd once hinted about trouble there. Could he sense me? Sense us, now? I didn't let myself think about it. Not as I felt the wall. As a human, it had been nothing but an invisible shield. As a fairy, I couldn't see it, but I could hear it crackling with power, the tang of it coating my tongue. "It's abhorrent, isn't it?" Azrael said, his low voice nearly swallowed up by the wind. "I can see why we were deterred for all these centuries," I admitted. Every heartbeat had us racing closer to that gargantuan, nauseating sense of power. "You'll get used to it, the wording," he said, clinging to him so tightly I couldn't see his face. I watched the light shift inside the sapphire siphon instead, as if it were the great eye of some half-slumbering beast from a frozen wasteland. I didn't really know where I fit in anymore. I admitted, perhaps only because the wind was screeching around us, and Reese had already winnowed ahead to where Cassian's dark form flew beyond the wall. "I've been alive almost 5.5 centuries, and I'm not sure of that either," Azrael said. I tried to pull back to read the beautiful icy face, but he tightened his grip, a silent warning to brace myself. How Azrael knew where the cleft was, I had no idea. It all looked the same to me, invisible open sky. But I felt the wall as he swept through, felt it lunge for me, as if enraged we'd slip past. Felt the power flare and try to close that gap, but failing. Then we were out. The wind was biting, the temperature so cold it snatched the breath from me. That bitter wind seemed somehow less alive than the spring air we'd left behind. Azrael banked, veering toward the coastline, where Reese and Cassian were now sweeping over the land. I shivered in my fur-lined cloak, clinging to Azrael's warmth. We cleared a sandy beach at the base of white cliffs, and flat snowy land dotted with winter-ravaged forests spread beyond them. The human lands. My home. here we go. That's it. That's all. Okay, so she's back in the human lands. I wonder what's gonna happen. I'm sort of excited to see, like, what her family says about all this. Oh, it's starting to get good. Yeah, so lots of plot. We're finally getting into, like, lots of plot. Very excited about that. So yeah, we will be back on Wednesday to read more, as our usual time, 7 p.m. EST. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to have to recalculate our chapters a little bit just to see when we can get Jackie back. I have to schedule around that a little bit. But yeah, we'll be looking into that. Just a reminder, because last night I didn't see too many of you. Saturday nights. we do our Saturday slumber parties, so don't forget that that's happening this weekend as well. Last night was a ton of fun. And then we've got our Sunday reading again next week. So that's our schedules. Wednesday, Saturday, Sundays. If you're not following, do give me a follow. I'd really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, a sub is always appreciated. It makes it all a lot easier to do this, and I really like it when you guys do this. Yeah. Ending this thing is always so hard. I never know what to say. But yeah, those are all the infos that you need. I will see you all on Wednesday. Oh, it's okay. I don't mean to shame you. It's okay if you've got a life. Like, please live your life. I don't have one. That's why I'm here. But no, I'm glad you had a friend's birthday. That sounds like that would have been fun, Carla. So I'm glad you had a good thing to do. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna head out for the day. I will see you all later on. And bye. I love you.